The future of free speech will be decided by the Supreme Court. But for now, it sure looks like the White House will still have control over social media platforms.
Will the government finally stop meddling with social media? Now, the Supreme Court has agreed to consider whether the Biden administration's efforts to curb online, quote-unquote, misinformation during COVID and on other subjects was unconstitutional. Last week, the court stopped a preliminary injunction aimed at preventing federal officials from potentially unconstitutionally interfering with content moderation decisions by social media platforms. Now, while agreeing to decide the merits of the case, this case being Murphy v. Missouri, it used to be called Missouri v. Biden, it began with a lawsuit by the attorneys general of Missouri to Louisiana and was joined by multiple social media users who claimed that their posts were downgraded or deleted because of pressure from the federal government on the social media platforms.
Now, at this time, the Biden administration remains free to resume contacts with social media companies.
So there was a preliminary injunction with the local judge, Judge Doughty, agreeing with the argument that the censored accounts were making, that it was improper, the level of contact the federal government had with them, and he made a list of behaviors that are no longer permissible and that are permissible, and we discussed that and whether that was actually workable distinctions. Then the Biden administration appealed. They said, no, we want to be able to pressure companies to censor if we so choose. That doesn't violate the First Amendment.
Phew. Where do we begin, huh? All right, so let's start here. Do you agree that the White House should have any sort of influence over social media platforms? Comment a quick yes or no on that one. And while you guys are at it, make sure you smash the like button for the video, also subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications so that you don't miss out on these important updates that relate to all of us here in the country. Appreciate the support, you guys. So getting back on topic, I believe, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys would agree, I believe that one of our most basic rights, and it's actually what actually sets us apart from other people from overseas, is that we have freedom of speech. Now, with that being said, we can share our opinions openly. We could talk about stuff that may be controversial, have different perspectives, different points of views, and it will be all good, right? No need to fear about where we stand because that's all right. But just like what happened during the health crisis, things went downhill. And I mean, like, it went downhill fast. It's something that I noticed with some of my videos too. And I'm pretty sure you guys see it with your posts on social media as well. I mean, just try sharing this video on your social media feed. There's a chance that not as many people are going to be able to react to it unless they're like us, people that want to uncover the truth. But more times than not many people will see your post, which again completely defeats the First Amendment and kind of makes you feel as if you're not a citizen of the United States of America. But wait, there's a possibility that you guys don't believe me, right? Remember when Jen Psaki was the White House press secretary?
The concern, though, I think for a lot of people on Facebook is that now this is Big Brother watching you.
They're more concerned about that than people dying across the country because of a pandemic where misinformation is traveling on social media platforms. That feels unlikely to me. If you have the data to back that up, I'm happy to discuss it.
You see, Psaki clearly says that Americans shouldn't care if somebody's watching their social media accounts and what they post on it, so long as it's in line with the narrative that the government wants. Who cares about freedom when misinformation is fast spreading throughout the World Wide Web, right? But about that though, most of that misinformation and conspiracy theories turned out to be true. So yeah, like, they may need to think about that statement again. In fact, they have a lot of statements that they may have to check back on.
And here's the thing, these are private companies, yes, but I'd say two things. One, they get liability protection from the federal government. You can't sue them if somebody defames you because of that. So what they basically said is they're not publishers, they're platforms. They advertise to you that they're open platforms, so you join Facebook, all this, they take your data, they sell it, they make a fortune off of it. But then for them to turn around and get that protection and then target people based on their viewpoint, that is a violation. That is at least a consumer fraud. The second thing is those companies have worked closely with the federal government to censor dissent. They work closely with Fauci to censor COVID information. And the stuff they censored was true. They just didn't want it to get out. I mean, remember, if you said in March of 2020 that COVID came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, they would censor you for that. That was true. It was not naturally occurring. It came from that lab with money that Fauci sent from gain-of-function research. That's why he didn't want the truth. We know that.
Well, we can't argue with what DeSantis is saying here because it's proven that most of these things are true. But here's what really boggles my mind, guys. It feels as if, and believe me, I had to read this a lot of times just to kind of get to this conclusion, but it feels as if the government, this current administration, thinks that providing the American people with free speech tramples on their right to be able to give us their narrative. You get what I'm trying to say here, right? And if anybody here thinks that that's not the case, look at this. From the case itself, it says that the government is claiming that this injunction, this decision to keep them from communicating with social media platforms will prevent how government officials, the president included, from speaking to the public on matters of public concern. The thing is, that's not true. The injunction only applies if they cross the line being coercion and control of our free speech rights. But wait, does this mean that the government wants to cross that line? I mean, we've seen it a bunch of times already, right? I mean, the Twitter files have been a huge setback for them because it revealed as to how deep the rabbit hole goes. Here's something else that we need to watch out for with this case, right? What is the difference between coercion and persuasion? Because I mean, like the White House can just say, hey, we didn't tell them to delete the post regarding the C-19 virus. We didn't do all of that. All we did was tell Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all these platforms that there are dangerous posts on their platforms. You see where they might go with this, right? That coercion, the term itself, will then be changed to suggestion because that's all that they're doing. They're just suggesting that changes be made.
Yeah, in addition to the plaintiff states, there were also plaintiff individuals who alleged that the federal government, including the White House, including the CDC, the Surgeon General, engaged in a suppression campaign by contacting social media companies like Facebook and Twitter and essentially coercing them into taking down the plaintiff's speech, which included things about COVID-19, vaccines, election integrity, generally, according to the opinion, conservative-leaning speech. Now, immediately, the thing that jumps out is the fact that if anyone, you might say that if anyone had their free speech curtailed, it was the social media companies and not the plaintiffs directly. But the court says essentially, because the government engaged in this kind of coercion, that it is potentially a First Amendment violation.
Is the argument here that because the government is so powerful, the White House itself so powerful, that even contacting these social media companies to discuss these kinds of things, even if they don't issue any kind of an order or anything phrased as an order, just that contact could be sort of bullying on First Amendment grounds?
Yes to that contact, but in addition, the opinion notes that the government contacted these companies, just like you or I might, to ask them to take something down. But when you and I do it, they might crumple it up and throw it away. When the White House calls, people listen, not just social media companies, but everybody answers that call. So they took meetings with them. They had email exchanges. But beyond that, when the White House and other government agencies didn't get what they wanted, according to the opinion, they made some not so subtle threats. Like, we're going to have to look at this really closely. We're going to have to look at your immunity under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Maybe we'll have an antitrust meeting. This is something we really need to take a look at. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but what the court concluded is that making those statements went a step too far. We can expect the White House will contact these companies, but to then say, when we're not getting what we want, therefore we might bring the might of the U.S. government against you.
But think about it. It's the White House, man. Do you think that anything that comes from them is a suggestion? Although I want to leave the last words with you guys. What do you think about all this? Do you think that the White House will leave our First Amendment alone? Or do you think that they'll just kind of force their hand as usual? Share your thoughts down below. And before I go, I want to thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. Keep safe, and I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Be safe.